right. Okay, they're filling. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to take a few minutes to let everybody get logged in here and see how things go. All right. We've got a good mix of people logging in online and phone, so. Richie, there's a couple raised hands. If you guys have questions, you can use the chat to ask tech questions.
Me pick Tina.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sending a message to Tina.
Okay. Great.
I'll take care of that.
Okay. Yeah, well.
Okay. So everybody's video will be off and everybody will be muted to start.
Right. Yep.
Okay. We have some questions coming in about that.
Yeah. All right. Well, people are coming in. We just made the 200 mark of people registering or signing in here. So I think we've already surpassed that 1/3. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to take a few more minutes to let people get in the door here before we get started. Yeah. I still see a steady stream of people, so we're just going to keep waiting because I think the electronics of it, but I don't want to wait too long because I know we have so much to cover. So. Hi, Sue. A lot of people coming in here. I don't know if you saw that, Kim Brooke Rogers saying hi.
I did. Thank you. Nice to get a shout out.
Okay. We're at 300. So excited that all of you are here. We'll see how close to all that's 500 get signed in here. So yeah, everyone who's joining is muted except for the panelists, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Oh, okay, let's see here. Richie, I'll see if I can do that.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. That's good. We got him. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and just start with some of the logistics of our time and just wanna say first, welcome to the Envision America sponsored Health and Wellbeing webinar. Before we get into some of the, the great content that we have prepared for you, I just wanted to go over a few things. So in the background, we have Richie Lefebvre, and he's gonna be monitoring both the chat and the Q&A. So if you have a technical question, he can answer that on the chat. If you have a question from one of our panelists about the topics, you can use the Q&A or the chat. And then what we're gonna do is kind of hold all those questions until the end. Anything that hasn't been answered by the panelists in their presentations, we'll try and get to some of those questions at the end. If we don't get to them, I will try and include resources to answer your question in a follow-up email to all the participants. If you're on a telephone today, just a reminder, you can use *9 to raise your hand, and then Richie will private chat you, or we'll try and get to your question at the end. All of you are already muted, so really you don't have to worry about *6, but that is the mute option if something should happen. So here's just a little background on why we're having the webinar. It seems like everybody and their brother is having a webinar now, like everybody's using Zoom. And we were talking about that, and I said, Dave, our CSRs talk to people every day. We know we're always following up with IDMate and ScriptTalk customers, and the same issues come up over and over again. The same kind of success stories, but also the same kind of struggles. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great to just get some people who can really address a lot of these same issues that people are having. And so that's what we did. So we just picked kind of the top 3. Low vision resources, diabetes, and how do you just have a good attitude when things are really hard. So we're just want to say welcome. Hopefully this will be a great resource for everyone. I'm really excited about having all of our panelists here today. So appreciative that they have joined us. And I'm really looking forward to everybody contributing. What we're gonna try and do is have each person talk for about 10 minutes. And then at the very end, if there's still questions, we'll open it up for questions. So what we're gonna start out with is the resources for low vision, especially for the older blind. And you know, this is especially a challenge for some people because as they get older, you know, they just gradually get used to not having their vision, or just slowly giving up a little bit of independence here, a little bit of independence there. And then at some point realize like, wow, I'm not doing what I used to be able to do. And so I thought it would be great to just share some of the resources that are out there. So to start us off is Pris Rogers. She's a special advisor on aging and vision loss with the American Foundation for the Blind. And she's been doing that for quite a while and has a lot of wisdom to share with us. Do you want to start out for us?
Sure, Charlotte. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. It's great to be here. And the resources I'm going to be talking about today are from the American Printing House for the Blind, as they now have a lot of the resources that AFB used to have. But first, I kind of wanted to give a little perspective on what we're talking about and letting people know who are out there that if they are older and visually impaired, they're not alone. We know that there are millions of people experiencing vision loss. In fact, about 27 million adults 40 and older has some form of vision loss, and about 22% of people 85 and older. So, and these numbers are really supposed to increase between now and 2050. So, as a result of a lot of different things. But so, I'm not saying all this to scare you, but just to let you know that a lot of people do have vision problems. However, there are a number of resources that can help to deal with these vision problems. And as Charlotte mentioned, we put together some resource lists. I put one together that includes a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about today, and other people on the call will be talking about as well. And I think she has other resource lists as well. The resource that I really wanted to pull out to talk with you about today is what APH offers in terms of our Connect Center. And the Connect Center has a lot of web-based resources, including visionaware.org. And also, they have information and referral specialists that are on call every day that you can call if you have a question or a concern. These are people at the other end of the phone who will help direct you to services. Wherever you live, they will look out for you, try to find help for you. Try to show you where the resources are on the web as well. So they're only a phone call away, and that telephone number is in that resource list that you will be getting. And they're available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday through an 800 number. I also want to talk about visionaware.org, which is a resource that was started many years ago and has information about living with vision loss. All aspects, from everyday living to finding services to blogs about living with vision loss by people who are visually impaired themselves and talk about concerns and issues and how they have dealt with them. Also has information about transportation, reading, leisure activities, almost every kind of category that you can think of. It was meant to be a holistic website, and also has information for family members. You can start out, there's a link in the resource list that we're sending that's called A Roadmap to Living with Vision Loss. And this is an informational page that offers an outline of services that can help you when losing vision loss. And Sylvia Perez later on is going to be talking about some of the resources that can help you throughout the country. But I wanted to mention that roadmap is on Vision Aware, and it will help you get started. As I mentioned, we have practical support for family and friends, because often family members don't know what to do, and we wanted to provide information for family members. Another great resource on Vision Aware is the Directory of Services, and it provides contact information in every state and in Canada for vision rehabilitation services and low vision services, support group services, and lots of other things. So there's a way to go in and look by state to find that information. So if you don't know where to find help, or someone that you know needs help, that's a good place to get started as well. I mentioned earlier that Vision Aware has some great blogs on living with vision loss, and that these were written by people with vision loss themselves. So check that out. There's a link to that. Just recently, we have done a whole series on the COVID-19, on all aspects of the COVID-19, on what you can do to stay safe in your home. One of the peer advisors is a nurse, and she has done several blog posts about eye conditions, what to do if you can't go see your doctor, what to know about if you're having to have shots for macular degeneration, all those things. There are 3 or 4 blog posts up there just about that topic itself. We also have a section on managing medication. Some of the stuff is outdated, but it has basic tips on how to manage your medication. So again, if you go to the website and just look around, you'll be amazed at a lot of the resources that are out there for you. And please check out the resource list. If there's something you're looking for that's not on it, then we'll be glad to help you find the answers to those questions. I hope this answers a lot of your questions, and I look forward to questions you may have later on. And now I'll turn the program over to Sylvia Perez from Mississippi State.
Hi, everyone. And I know many of you. I'm Sylvia Stinson Perez with the National Research and Training Center on Blindness and Low Vision at Mississippi State University, and particularly the Older Individuals Who Are Blind Technical Assistance Center. So as people were coming in, I was hearing lots of names that I recognized. So glad to have you on, and super excited that I know people who are visually impaired are also participating in today's webinar. I myself am visually impaired and have been down that road of vision loss, and so really understand that it can be a challenge, both just functionally figuring out how to do the things that you still enjoy and want and need to do, continuing to work, and also the adjustment from the emotional side, just realizing that you are still a whole person with so much to give. And so finding ways to really adjust to and cope with vision loss is huge. So I was asked to talk about some of the resources that are available, because oftentimes those of us who work in the field of visual impairment and blindness know that there are some amazing services that are provided at no cost that lots of people don't know about. Just in the older blind program, Chris mentioned that there could be up to 27 million people who are visually impaired. And we can assume that at least 15 million of those are over 55. And yet only about 50,000 people, 55 and over, seek out services each year. So there are so many services available that are at no cost, and I wanted to just share about those. And I think aph.org is a great place to find those services, because oftentimes they can be a little challenging to find. Those who are veterans can go to your VA and get services. State agencies, every single state agency, and I heard someone from Canada here, Canada has CNIB, but every state has a state agency for the blind. Sometimes it's hard to find because it might be under workforce or Department of Labor, Department of Human Services. It could almost be under anything, but finding that is going to lead to some great resources and some great training. And then, of course, we have private agencies like Envision and a lot of lighthouses and other agencies. I heard lots of people on here from agencies today. So those are in communities that also are connected with those state agencies. So what are some of the services that are available to those who I know that we have providers on here, but I'm going to talk about some of the services that are available for those who are people who are low vision. So there's daily living skills. And I know today we're talking about medication management and use of Script Talk, which is an awesome product available at pharmacies. But in daily living skills training, you can learn about methods for managing your medicines, whether that be organizing them, even more labeling than just the Script Talk. It's just all kinds of things you can do, how to safely prepare meals, how to get out and get your own groceries using customer service, how to advocate for yourself, how to manage your bills with magnification or text-to-speech software, etc. Orientation and mobility, so how to get around safely and independently if you're tripping and bumping into people, how to not do that, and with the use of either a cane and then maybe eventually if you wanted a guide dog. Assistive technology, so right now I am using a computer and I have an earphone in my ear because I'm getting all of the chat coming into my ear through my text-to-speech software. And so there's all kinds of amazing technology available that people can learn to cope with and live with and work who are visually impaired. And of course, a really important resource that I think Chris mentioned as well that is really important is access to adjustment to vision loss, counseling, participation in support groups or peer groups or consumer groups. There's a lot of options out there. I know this Friday, the OIB TAC is going to be doing a webinar with Well Connected and Bosma Enterprise, Bosma in Indianapolis, which has a Well Connected type program, and that's a phone-based support program. And so there's all kinds of services. And the amazing thing that I would like to commend all of our agencies that are on here today is the tremendous innovation and creativity and problem solving I have seen professionals in our field take. And of course, I think people who are visually impaired have had to be extremely creative and innovative at this time. But I commend our professionals because it is very different from providing face-to-face services to moving into remote and virtual services. And many have really stepped up and done a fantastic job doing that. So those of you who might be on today who need these great services I'm talking about, don't hesitate to seek them out because you probably are going to be able to still get great services and great training. So that's it for all I have to offer. I will say that the OIB TAC, which is oib-tac.org, has a website as well. We call it a community of practice that is full of tremendous resources. Ours are really more focused on professionals who work with people who are visually impaired, but I guarantee you anyone who touches anyone who's visually impaired or who is visually impaired can benefit. So lots of training courses. We have a lessons for living with low vision and blindness curriculum and all kinds of great resources and webinars. So www.oib-tac.org. And I heard him just put it up there in the chat box. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Neva Fairchild, and I'm the National Aging and Vision Loss Specialist for the American Foundation for the Blind. And thanks to Chris and Sylvia for covering so many good topics about resources. I've been asked to share a little bit about the aspects of living with vision loss that have to do with getting connected socially. And I realize that right now with social distancing, that seems like an odd topic, but it's really quite possible even with self-isolation or mandatory isolation through the support groups that Pris mentioned, getting connected by telephone and by Zoom with other people who are learning about and dealing with vision loss. Either those people who are new to vision loss or people who've lived with vision loss for a long time, but maybe their vision is changing, or maybe they're living in a new place and they're adjusting to new circumstances, which I think we can say that for all of us these days. We're adjusting to new circumstances with the pandemic. The Well Connected service that both Pris and Sylvia mentioned is a great resource for people to connect up by telephone or Zoom if you can use video and benefit from a picture as well as words. And it's not just low vision support groups and daily living skills training kinds of things. It's also trips to virtual museums and learning a foreign language and crafting and all sorts of topics that you can't imagine that you would have access to, but you do by the telephone. Well Connected used to be called Senior Centers Without Walls, and it's really a good name. I know why they changed it, because they wanted to broaden their horizons, but if you can imagine what happens at your local senior center, it happens at Well Connected. There's also another service that will be in your resource list or that Charla will share with everybody, called Lifetime Connections Without Walls. It's very similar to Well Connected, it's only telephone. And the neat thing about this is you don't even have to remember a phone number or a password to dial. If you sign up for a class, which you do through calling or writing in to their registration portal, they call you at the time of the class. And all you have to do is answer your phone and it'll say, do you want to join? And if you don't want to join, you just hang up or hit the number that says, I don't want to join. But I think it's wonderful because sometimes keeping track of the phone number you have to call and the access number you have to have, and did I dial it right anyway, makes joining almost any event these days a little more challenging. So I like what they do with that. I have a monthly presentation on there called Living with Vision Loss, and we cover all sorts of topics. Last time we covered tips and tricks around the kitchen. I'm visually impaired. I have a form of retinitis pigmentosa that is progressive. So back in the day when I did a lot of cooking, I had a lot more vision than I do now. I gave up cooking for Lent one year and I just kind of never picked it back up. And so my husband and I ate a lot of prepared foods, or we went out a lot, and I just wasn't cooking. Well, back in February, we bought a new home, which has all new appliances, and they're all digital interface, and they're all flat glass, and they're all inaccessible completely. And right about that time, we also went into lockdown. And so going out to eat and that kind of thing went down the tubes very quickly. Plus, I just wanted to save some money. We were buying a new house, and I thought maybe I ought to tighten up the budget on the eating out a little bit. And so I talked about the things that I had to do to adjust to my new kitchen and my new circumstances. And even though I've lived with vision loss for a long, long time, new things require new techniques and new tips and tricks. And so that was fun, and the topics vary from month to month. I think it's important that you not only socialize, though, with other people who have visual impairments, and not everybody on these phone-in services are visually impaired. Sometimes they're just people who live at home and don't have the transportation to get out to their senior center to do things in person. But it's important to socialize with people who are not blind or visually impaired. If you love to read and you like being a part of a book group, for heaven's sakes, don't not join a book group because you're the only person who is blind or visually impaired and might use talking books or large print books to participate. Get out there and be involved. Help people understand that just because you can't see well doesn't mean you're really any different than them, except maybe the technique you use to read your books. Same thing is true with knitting and other activities. I realize a lot of those aren't in person right now, but I've been seeing a lot of knit-alongs that use telephone services, conference calling, free conference calls, Zoom, and lots of ways to get connected to other people. And if you have the technology to join, by all means, because being social means that we help each other, we learn from each other. And you may be the only blind or visually impaired person that group of all sighted people has ever met. You also might be a person in a group of other people with visual impairments that's a few steps farther along the road than another person in the room. And so you have something to reach back and help them come forward a little bit with. And the other thing is true too, that there may be somebody on the call that has ideas and advice and wisdom to share with you to help you with something you're struggling with. The main thing is right now, I think we all need to be a ray of hope for somebody. And you never know when you're going to be the ray of hope for someone else on a call or as a gathering virtually or in person. And you never know when you're going to encounter someone that can be a ray of hope to you. Before we tackle the topic of medication management and the products from Envision America, I wanted to just give you a little history lesson on where some of the prescription label access came from. In 2012, July of 2012, President Obama signed into law the FDA Safety and Innovation Act. And it called for a group, the U.S. Access Board, to convene a group of working group of pharmacists, advocates, blindness professionals, and interested parties together to come up with guidelines or best practices for prescription container labeling for people who are blind or visually impaired or have some kind of print impairment, so that the regular label on a prescription bottle is not readable for them. And that could just be a result of aging vision, not necessarily a diagnosis of an age-related visual impairment. We met for a year, and at the end of the year, we came out with a set of guidelines, and those guidelines covered everything from large print to audio to braille and tactile access to prescription container labels. And they were designed as guidelines, which means they're not required. It is not a regulation, but it is a best practice. And it was distributed widely to pharmacists and people who are blind or visually impaired and the professionals who work with them and advocate for them, so that people would know that they could go to their pharmacy and ask for this. Now, many years before all of this took place, Envision America was out there and Script Talk was already available. And so certainly it was one of the audio, large print, and refreshable braille options that a person could choose to use. The lovely thing is that since that Access Board guideline was released in July of 2013, many pharmacies have stepped up. It started mostly with mail order services. Well, it really started at the VA. The VA had Script Talk long before these guidelines were available. But then we started seeing mail order services like CVS Caremark and others come on board to offer Script Talk. And over the years, it's just blossomed, and Script Talk is now available in brick and mortar pharmacies across the nation. And it's a marvelous thing for medication management for people who are print disabled. And the reason it's so important is that taking your medication independently and accurately and helping a family member to do the same is an important part of independence for people who are blind or visually impaired. as well as for their safety and their health. So thanks. I hope that some of the information I shared is resonating with you, and more information will be available in the resource materials Charla will be sending out. Back to you, Charla.
Thanks. Well, you guys, that's great. There's so many resources out there, and I'm glad you shared some of those, and we will definitely include all of that stuff in the resource list that we're going to email out to everybody who's attending. So, you know, if you're trying to keep notes or something like that, don't worry, we're going to email it all out to you at the end. Thank you so much for that history of the accessible label best practices. I think that, you know, just kind of knowing that a lot of people have put so much work into that, and to, you know, helping pharmacies to know, you know, what should we be doing, makes a big difference. So next we're going to have Judy Dixon and talk to us a little bit about what we can be doing to get organized, and what are some good tips and techniques on labeling things. You know, a lot of people out there already know about ScriptTalk, already know about IDMate. Maybe you're not using something like IDMate to label stuff around the house. So she's going to give some ideas. Judy, let's unmute you. Are you ready? Richie, can we get Judy?
Yeah, let me see if we can get her here. Oh,
I think Judy,
there
we
she
go.
goes.
Are you ready, Judy? I think we're having a little audio issue here. We can't hear you, honey.
Sometimes even though you unmute her, she has to unmute herself with Alt-A.
Okay. Judy, are you there? All right, I think we got you now. You there?
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, there you go.
Ah, there we go.
Welcome.
I had to unplug my microphone and plug it back in again.
Oh,
It really helps if you're in the Zoom window when you do the Alt A. It just doesn't do any good to do it somewhere else. Okay, thank you,
All right.
Charla.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Many, and I'm amused by a number of the panel members here have said that they are visually impaired. Well, I identify myself as a blind person. So I am actually, I've learned lately that I'll tell somebody I'm totally blind, and people seem not to understand what that means. I've discovered just recently that if I say I'm completely blind, it makes sense to people, and I'm completely baffled by what the difference is between totally blind and completely blind. But so I'm trying to now practice saying I'm completely blind. But be all that as it may, it is what it is. So many blind people, like myself, have very long established strategies for labeling things. And they've worked, we might change them from time to time when new devices come out or new ways of doing things, but for the most part, they work pretty well for us, and we've all been real happy with them. Well, with COVID-19 now with us, I have found, at least in our house, we've really had to rethink and change a lot of the ways we do things. And there's several reasons for that. Our ways of getting things have changed. We normally, and I read an article, it's not just blind people, apparently a lot of sighted people are doing this too, whereas we normally just get what we need from the grocery store. We're now buying a lot more stuff in bulk, because, you know, we don't know when we'll ever see it again. You know, instead of buying 5 pounds of flour now, I buy 25 pounds of flour. And not to be a flour hoarder, but it's just kind of the thing I'm doing. So my ways of labeling things have had to change. And our resources aren't the same. you know, you can't just count on somebody dropping by so you can ask them what something is if you don't know, or if you can't read something or whatever. It's all different. So I'm finding that my own strategies for labeling and my own strategies for obtaining the things I obtain have changed hugely. And it's been a bit of an adjustment to do that. But we can expect our strategies to change as the circumstances around us keep changing. And I think, at least I know for me, having things organized and having things labeled for me is a real source of comfort and security. I feel a lot better when the things around me are well organized, and I know what it all is, and I know where it is, and I know what's going on with it. And I do actually use ScriptTalk for my prescriptions. What I do is when a prescription arrives, I get most of mine through the mail, and my mail order pharmacy associated with my insurance puts the ScriptTalk labels on. And when I get them, I then make a Braille label, and I don't identify it with ScriptTalk except when it arrives, and the Braille label tells me what it is. And now that ScriptTalk has an app, it's even better, because I'm one of those people who kind of uses my iPhone for everything anyway. And now being able to do it to identify my prescriptions is really, really a wonderful thing. I also use my iPhone for lots of quick identification. The quick scanning apps like Seeing AI and InVision AI are really good enough now. You can just grab your iPhone, pick up a package, and it'll read a few words. It might not get it absolutely perfectly, but if you have it, you can certainly tell if it's Triscuits or graham crackers by what it says. And there's a new one out, name we'll think of in just a second. There's a new app that's really very nice. That's another one of these scanning apps. I'll tell you what it is in a second. So there's a lot of different ways to label. I label a lot of the stuff in the kitchen. There's another new source of Braille labels called Candoables. And these are 3D printed kind of rings, almost a complete ring, but not a complete circle, that you snap onto a can or snap onto a bottle. They've got new ones coming out that you can use on boxes and on bags. They have chip clips, and they have both Braille and print on them. And they're very, very cool because they can be reused. So you just snap it off and snap it onto another product. And it's a really quick, fast, super easy way to label something. National Braille Press is selling them, and they're also available from Candoable. There are just tons of ways to label things. There are lots of, one of the devices for labeling things like file folders and documents and so forth is a device such as the Pen Friend, which is a device that has little labels, and then you record what it is with this wand, and then every time you scan it with the wand, it speaks what you recorded. And that's another quick, efficient way to label things. I use that a lot for labeling papers mostly, and things like that. One of the things I do is I write books for National Braille Press, and mostly I write books about the iPhone and how blind people use the iPhone. And I've just finished one on photography, how blind people use the iPhone to take pictures and use the camera app and all the cool things you can do with it. So I'm now embarking on a labeling book, and I wrote one in 2008. And so this is going to be a complete update of the labeling book that I did in 2008, using all the different new technology and all the different cool stuff that's there, and how to make your own QR codes so that you can actually provide information with your labels. So I will stop there. And the new app that I was telling you, there's a new app. I just looked it up on my phone. It's called SuperSense. And it's a new scanning app that is similar to, if people are familiar with apps like Seeing AI and Envision AI, these are kind of multi-function, multi-purpose apps that are very, very good at scanning and they can read barcodes, they can do all kinds of other cool things. And this SuperSense app does a lot of those things too, and it's just getting started, so it's only going to get better as it goes along. Okay, I'll stop there, and I look forward to questions.
Okay, thank you so much. And you know, when I was first talking to Judy about coming on, we were joking around about how we, you know, when you feel like everything is out of control, like if you organize just one little part of your life, like one dresser drawer, or, you know, rearrange the furniture in one area, and I'm not blind, so I can do that. You know, just rearrange my whole bedroom and clean everything. You know, just one little thing can make you feel like a little bit better. Like, at least I have control over this one part of my life, or at least my kitchen junk drawer is cleaned out, you know. So there's always that sense of like, you know, you can use that as a skill and as a way of like coping, as a coping mechanism. So that kind of is a good segue into our next, well, no, actually, I forgot. I'm getting out of order. We were going to have Kim Ladd and Tom Tobin talk about diabetes next. You know, there is a lot of people are using Script Talk and stuff like that for managing their meds and everything, but they're going to talk a little bit more about some of the challenges of managing diabetes, and they have the experience, so they're going to talk about it.
All right, so this is Kim. I'm first, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am so glad to be a part of this. I am passionate about empowerment, and my goal actually is to ensure that every person with diabetes is as independent as possible and actively managing it. So in my role at the Virginia Department for the Blind and Vision Impaired, I'm a diabetes and health educator, and I work directly with clients throughout the state, either in their home or at our training center, VRCBVI in Richmond, Virginia, educating and empowering them to manage all aspects of their chronic diseases, especially diabetes. So as you all know, it involves problem solving, especially to come up with a way to help people identify their medications, to prevent medication errors, to properly administer medications, to check their blood sugar, and many other issues. So I want to share with you all some of the solutions that we've come up with through the years in hopes that maybe some of them will help you or someone you know. But I do want to do just a quick overview, and Charlotte, I'm going to do my best to keep it at 10 minutes because I could talk about diabetes, I think, for 20 hours straight and still not finish everything. So I'm going to do my best, okay?
All right, sounds good.
So a quick overview. So diabetes is a chronic disorder of carbohydrate metabolism resulting from inadequate production or utilization of insulin. So insulin is a hormone that is produced by beta cells in our pancreas. When you have diabetes, your pancreas either doesn't make enough insulin or your body can't use its own insulin effectively. The role of insulin is to allow the sugar that's in your bloodstream to enter your cells in your body to be used as energy. When you can't make enough insulin, the extra sugar just kind of sits in your bloodstream, and that is a bad thing. Sugar is an irritant, so when it stays in the bloodstream, it actually causes damage to our blood vessels and our nerves, and that leads to organ, muscle, and cell damage. So this damage is what causes the complications of diabetes. The number one complication of diabetes is cardiovascular disease. The number one cause of blindness in adults is diabetes, and that's due to retinopathy, glaucoma, cataracts. The number one cause of kidney failure is diabetes. The other complications of diabetes are slow healing wounds, multiple types of infections like kidney infections, skin, bladder, and gum infections, bladder dysfunction, gum disease, sexual problems, gastroparesis, neuropathy, neuropathic pain, foot ulcers, and lower extremity amputations. So the mainstay of diabetes management is to control your blood sugar levels. You don't want that blood sitting in your bloodstream causing damage. So the way to do that is to manage your diabetes. So I'm just going to go over just a few quick tips. The first one is the most important, and that is you need to make a commitment to manage your diabetes. No one can do it for you. You might think they can, but they cannot. It's your body. You need to control it. I am not low vision, but I do have diabetes. So I understand how hard it is. It is a 24/7 job to manage your diabetes, but it can be done. And I don't want anyone to use low vision or no vision as an excuse not to manage it, because you can. I could tell you stories till the cows come home about people that have been proactive with low vision or no vision, and they actively are managing their diabetes on a daily basis, and their numbers are better than mine. So that's no excuse. It just, you got to find it within yourself to want to actively manage it. Another tip is don't smoke. If you do need help to quit smoking, there is a resource, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. It is everywhere in the nation. It's free counseling and smoking cessation aid. So 1-800-QUIT-NOW if you need that. You can even make up a name. If you don't want them to know who's calling, you can make up a name. They don't care. Also, take care of your teeth and your feet. Keep your vaccinations up to date. You want to establish a daily routine. Your body craves a routine. Having a routine actually helps to keep your blood sugar levels on a wave, I call it. You want it like a wave on the ocean. Your blood sugar level is going to go up and go down throughout the day, depending on what you eat, whether you take your medications correctly, and how much activity you get. What you want to do is you don't want to have spikes. You don't want, your blood sugar to go super high and then go super low, because that's when you start having symptoms, and that's when your body doesn't like it. So try to get up at the same time every day, go to sleep at the same time every day, eat your meals at the same time, eat about the same amount of food at every meal. Your body craves it, and it will respond positively when you do that. You also want to practice stress management, because stress raises blood sugar levels, and get enough sleep. Exercise regularly. You want to try to get at least 150 minutes per week. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go run an hour, every day and do that. Just be as active as you possibly can. I actually heard on a newscast the other day, this guy, he calls them exercise snacks. And I love that name because I love snacks. So basically what it is, it's like little snacks of exercise. So like if you're sitting on the couch watching TV and a commercial comes on, when the commercial's on, exercise. You're going to get like 3 to 5 minutes of exercise in one time. I mean, you could do something simple like just stand up and then sit down, and stand up and sit down, or wave your arms, or, dance, or whatever it is you have to do. You don't have to go to a gym. Just get your exercise snacks whenever you can. Also, of course, one of the mainstays of management is healthy eating. Now, we could talk again for a long time about that, but just know diabetes diet now is not as strict as it used to be. I've been teaching about diabetes for about 20 years, and when I first started, it was very strict. The problem is, nobody followed it because it was so strict. So now diabetes is like ridiculous. 1 in 10 Americans now has diabetes. 1 in 3 Americans has pre-diabetes. So it just keeps getting worse. So they kind of relaxed, the American Diabetes kind of relaxed the regulations for eating. The basis of diabetes eating now is portion control, moderation, and balance. And there's lots of different ways you can do that, but that's for another time, I think. All right, so besides visiting your doctor at least every 6 months to have your hemoglobin A1C level tested, checking your blood sugar at home is the way for you day to day to find out if you're properly managing your diabetes. Now, according to the American Diabetes Association, you want your blood sugar level to be between 80 and 130. Some people, their doctors want a different range for them. So if your doctor gives you a different range, go with what your doctor says. But if they do not give you a range, 80 to 130, that's fasting or between meals. If it's within 2 hours after eating, you want it to be below 180. So of course, you know, yeah, test your blood sugar. Your doctor might say, hey, I want you to test your blood sugar 4 times a day. And you're thinking in your head, well, I can't see, so how am I going to test my blood sugar? I mean, it does make it even more challenging, but you can do it. I have had a lot of success with people. Unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand or pixie dust that I can sprinkle on you to make it easier for you. I hate to tell you, but it comes down to practice. So you have to just find a technique that works for you and practice, practice, practice. But here's a few things that I have found that have helped people. So one of the things is, I know Judy talked a lot about organization, so that's what this as well. Keep all of your testing supplies together, preferably in like a portable container. So you're not wandering through the house trying to find, where's my strips, where's my Lancet and all that. Keep it all together so you know what you have and when you need to reorder supplies. I suggest a safety Lancet. So for anyone that has video, I have it up here. This is a type of safety Lancet. Usually there's a lancing pin and a needle that you have to take the top off the pin, put the needle in, put the top back on, adjust the depth, click it to trigger it, and then push the button. So that's a whole lot of steps. And you can get a lot of accidental sticks. So I suggest safety Lancet, which is a one-piece device. It's really easy. All you do is prime it by pushing down the stopper, take it off. You cannot accidentally stick yourself. I'm touching the tip and no blood. And then you just push the button and it sticks. And then it goes in itself. So it's safer too to throw away. So I suggest that. All this stuff will be on my resources, so don't worry about trying to write it down. Also, you want to get a talking meter. So I'm also going to include a resource sheet on how you can get a talking meter. So you also need to advocate with yourself. DBVI, we have been doing webinars, and one of the ones I did was about how to advocate and get from your insurance what it is you need. Just know a lot of insurance companies will say you can only get this brand, or you can't get a talking meter because we don't cover it. Well, they can't do that. If it is medically necessary, meaning your doctor says you need to have it, the insurance company will cover it. It might mean that your doctor needs to get involved and sign a medical necessity form, but how can the insurance company expect you to check your blood sugar when you can't see the numbers? So I'm just saying, learn to advocate. You need to have a relationship with your doctor and get them involved. So the resource sheet that I have explains to you how to do that, and I'll give that to Charlotte for everyone to get. But there's lots of talking meters out there, and so whichever one you can get is fine. But I just wanted y'all to know that the Prodigy Voice is the one that if I had my choice, this is the one I would get everybody to get, because as of right now, it is the only meter that is completely accessible, meaning you can set it. Whenever you change the batteries in a meter, you have to set the time, the date, the language, and all of that. Most of the meters do not talk you through that step, so you need some sighted assistance to do that. The Prodigy Voice will talk you through the steps of setting it. And all of them, you don't even have to push a power button. As soon as you put the strip in, the machine turns on and it starts talking to you. Let's see, it probably won't work for me today because there it goes.
Prodigy Voice. Today's date, January 13, 2015. The time, 2:01 a.m.
All right, I'm going to stop because, but as soon as you put the strip in, it turns on, it tells you the time and the date. It'll tell you when to put the blood on the strip, and then it'll tell you what your reading is. So that helps a lot. Also, if for some reason you cannot get a talking meter, insurance only allows you to get a meter like every one time a year or so. So if you just got one and it's not talking and you need a talking one, just problem solve. Use whatever you can. If you have any low vision aids, I've used Ruby handhelds, I've used Smart Luxes, I've used CCTVs, anything I can think of, lighted magnifiers, to try to figure out how someone can see their numbers. Also, there's apps you can use. Be My Eyes is an app where people actually volunteer to be your eyes. It's a free app. It's on iPhones and Androids. It's funny because if you call it, it's 24 hours. If you call it like 2 in the morning, you're going to get somebody from Australia because they're awake and we're not. I just think it's fun to get different accents and meet different people. But so, that's one of the apps you could use. You could, prick your finger and get the result and then call the app and you can go, hey, what is this number? And they'll tell you. So that's another way, just whatever workaround you can come up with. There's no wrong answer. It's just whatever answer works for you. Also, like Judy mentioned, organization is the key. All right, so some of the things, there's also a tip. So getting the blood on the strip is often the thing that I hear the most from people. I've had people, they go through 20 strips in one time trying to get the blood on the strip because they can't see it. And that is so frustrating. And once again, I wish I had a silver bullet for that, but I do not. But I did kind of develop a method called the thumb guide method, that basically you're using your thumb as a landmark on the finger that you're pricking to give you a smaller surface area to have to search for. So I have the steps to that written down, and I'll also give that to Charlotte if anyone wants to try that method. The other thing you can do is you could ask your doctor about getting a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. Usually you qualify for continuous glucose monitor if you have diabetes, you are on insulin, and you have orders from your doctor to check your blood sugar 3 to 4 times or more a day. So if you qualify that way, insurance usually pays 100% as long as you qualify and your doctor orders it. Basically what it is, the easiest one to get is like the Freestyle Libre, and there's commercials every day on the TV for that device. I've had lots of people, I have taught them successfully how to insert the sensor in their arm. That's the hardest part, is inserting that sensor, because it comes in like 2 pieces and you have to put it together and click it and then put it on the back of your arm and inject it. The sensor stays in for 14 days. You don't have to calibrate it with finger sticks. So if you get it, you don't have to check your blood sugar unless you have a really low or really high episode, just to verify. But the meter that comes with the Libre is not accessible, but they have an app that you can use voiceover or talk back with, and it will be accessible. So that's the success I've had with that. I did have a lady that I found out inadvertently. We thought she got the Libre, and I went to her house to help her, you know, put it on and install it, and we could not get the app to load on her iPhone. And I was baffled. I was like, what is going on? So then I finally went on the website. Well, you have to have at least an iPhone 7, and she had an iPhone 6. So I was like, oh my goodness, I got her to get this, and now we can't even use it. So what we did was I downloaded the Be My Eyes app on her phone, and that's what she does. She calls Be My Eyes. She says, I'm going to scan my arm. Tell me what it is. And then she scans it, and they tell her, and that worked perfectly for her. So, you know, that's just another thing to think of. It's getting, I know Tom is going to talk more about technology, so I don't want to steal his thunder because he knows more about it than I do. But I'm just telling you about some things that I have found that have been useful with some of the new technology that's coming out. Charlotte, I'm going fast. I'm sorry.
You're doing fine.
Okay. So, you know, also taking your medications as prescribed is also a very important part of managing your chronic diseases. So the first thing we need to be able to do is properly identify our medications. And I swear I don't get paid by Envision America, but my favorite tool is my Script Talk. So here's my Script Talk. I love it because it's free. I love free, and it's pretty easy to get. I have had some issues with, I'm not picking on Walmart, so if Walmart's on the phone, I'm sorry. But, you know, Walmart carries the Script Talk. So their corporate sent out a press release that they carry the Script Talk, and this is how you get it. Well, you know, I go into some places in Virginia that are in the mountains and far, and, you know, there's a Walmart there, but for some reason, nobody's ever gotten Script Talk with them. So I'm trying to get it for one of my clients, and the pharmacy doesn't know what I'm talking about. So I've had issues initially getting it for people, but whenever I've had a problem, I've called Charlotte and Envision America. They're on it. So there's a plug for y'all. Y'all have
We are very happy to help anybody who's having trouble.
But, you know, once you get it, you're golden. So once you get it and that store has all the equipment, it's a smooth process. Yeah. The other reason I love it is because it's pharmacist driven. You know, the pharmacy is the one making the labels and putting them on your medicine. They usually put it on the bottom. So that decreases errors from having a lay person labeling your medications. You're actually having a professional do it. So this is always my go-to, but I can't always use it because there are some places there is not a pharmacy that the person can use that has Script Talk, Or like I had a lady, she went to a pharmacy for 20 years and she did not want to change pharmacy. She didn't care. They didn't have any accessible stuff. She loved her pharmacist bill and that's all there was to it. So, you know, that's fine. You can keep your pharmacy. So we had to problem solve and come up with some other ways. So if I can't get Script Talk, sometimes some pharmacies will either do large print labels or Braille labels. Just ask them. If not, I'll get the Braille label out and I'll make Braille labels and stick them on medicine. Hopefully the person can read Braille. Judy mentioned the Pen Friend. So here's my Pen Friend. There's also one called the Talking Wand that Reason makes. It's pretty much the same device, but I will use this for medications. And basically it has like 3 buttons on it. It has a big microphone on top, so you can karaoke with it if you want to. And then the bottom part is what reads it. You turn it on, it beeps. You place a label on the medicine.
Amoxicillin, 250 milligrams. Take 1 capsule 3 times a day.
So that's what I'll do. If someone has a Pen Friend, I will label all of their medications. The downfall with this is when you get a refill, you get a new bottle and the label's on the old bottle. So I usually put it on the lid of the medicine. And if they happen to get so lucky and get the same size bottle with their refill, you just take the lid off the old one and put it on the new one. But you still need someone with vision to verify the medication. So I tell people, if you, excuse me, I needed water. If you go up to the pharmacy and get your medicine, you make the pharmacy team, make somebody go over your medication with you. You sit there in that little consultation window and you go, tell me what this is. And you take the bottle off the old one and you put it on the new one. That's their job. They should be willing to help. Or if you get it mail order, hopefully you have someone that can help you. Or you can use Be My Eyes if you don't care. Whoever's on the phone from Australia knows you're taking lisinopril. It doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with. So that's a good one. I have had circumstances where I couldn't get any of those things. So I had to do old school with bump dots. So what I do is these don't really help anybody identify their specific medication, but what it does is it helps you know which one is morning, noon, and evening. So what I'll do is I'll just put 1 bump dot on the lid of the AM, 2 on the lid for the afternoon, and 3 on the lid for the PM. And then usually people keep them in separate places. So that helps to prevent a medication error as well. You can also use apps. You know, Seeing AI helps, the ID Mate helps, and Be My Eyes. So anything you can come up with, get creative so that you can identify your medication. So once you identify your medication, you need to make sure that you properly administer them. So what I'm going to show you is kind of specific to insulin because that is like the hardest medication for people to take because there's so many steps involved. I do recommend insulin pen. So I have an insulin pen here. The reason it's easier is because all you have to do is screw a needle on the end and then dial up your medication. It clicks. I'm going to click it and see if you can hear it. I don't know if y'all can hear those clicks, but if you put it up to your ear, each click is 1 unit of insulin. So if the doctor says you need to take 20 units of Lantus at night, you can just count the clicks. Of course, you need to make sure you're not doing anything else. Don't watch TV or read a book while you're doing this. You need to concentrate on what you're doing so you don't administer the wrong amount. But I love the insulin pen for that. But unfortunately, as I know all y'all probably know, the insulin prices have quadrupled and it's ridiculous. So an insulin pen can cost like $600 for 1 pen, depending on the type of insulin that you have. So a lot of insurance companies are limiting the number of pens you can get if you can even get it. So some people have to go to the old school way of getting it in a vial and drawing it up. So if you have to do that because you don't want to go without your insulin, you know, you just might have to adapt to a different way of doing things. There are some devices. One is called the Safe Shot, and I'll have all this info in my resources too. So the Safe Shot is a plastic device that you insert a syringe in. The syringe will only go in one way, so that's good. Once you learn how to do it, you're good. It has a little plastic screwdriver that you can adjust a plunger that stops the plunger on the syringe at the dose that you need. So you have to hold this straight up with the syringe straight up, take the top off the syringe. You need like 8 arms to use this. Put the insulin vial on top of the needle And then all you do is draw back the plunger and it stops at your dose. So this one is set at 70, no, this one is set at 42 units. So that's how you would fill a syringe. It's not 100%, but if you live alone, you need to do it, or you have to do it, it's better than nothing. So I teach people how to use this. Another thing is the countadose. So this is for people that have a sliding scale insulin, meaning your insulin dose changes depending on your blood sugar levels or your carb intake for that meal. So it might be 8 units at one meal and it might be 20 units at another meal. So this is the countadose. It works kind of like an insulin pen. This thing's been around so long that it comes with a cassette tape with the instructions. So, you got to find a cassette player if you can't find the instructions any other way. Basically, you insert the syringe. There's only one way it can go in. It's a little difficult to learn to insert the syringe. That's probably the hardest part of it. But once you get it in there, the syringe doesn't move, and that's how you know it's in there properly. Again, you hold it straight up in the air. The insulin vial goes on top, gets punctured by the needle, and then it has a dial. There's a plus, a raised plus symbol, and a raised minus symbol. So this one you can add or deduct insulin. So once again, it clicks. It's not as loud as the insulin pen, but if you hold it up to your ear, you can hear it and you count the clicks. If you mess up, you just go back to 0 and start over again. So this is another device that I've had to use in some circumstances. Like I said, it is probably the most difficult one, but I did have a gentleman, he was 87 years old, and he wanted me to come teach him how to give his sliding scale insulin because his wife had not gone to church in 4 years because she had to stay home and give him his insulin. So I went out and I taught him how to use it, and then he practiced, and I went back like 2 weeks later and he had it, and he was so ecstatic that his wife got to go to church. So sometimes it's just the little things. He made the commitment to learn how to do it, and he's still doing great. So that's my story with that one. All right. So another thing that can work is utilizing a pill box. Using a pill box, cuts down your time every day that you need to take your pills, and also helps reduce medication errors as long as you fill it correctly, because you might be tired one day or your vision is worse one day and you read something wrong and then you got a medication error. So, pill boxes start on Sunday and end on Saturday. So, I take a bunch of pills. So what I do is every Sunday I take an hour and I fill my pill box for the whole week. And then I only have to worry about it one day. There's tons of pill boxes out there. This is a humongous one that holds even the big pills. It has large letters. You can get different contrast colors. This one's red on white. You can get black on white, white on black. You just have to search for them. This one actually has Braille dots on it as well. So if you understand Braille, you can do that. There's some that have 2, 4 compartments, all different kinds. Some of the suggestions that I have is always fill your pill box on a flat surface. Put a towel down and put your pill box on it with the pills that you're working with on the towel, because if you drop a pill, it'll fall on the towel instead of on the floor, and then you have a certain area to search. Another tip is I got from Angie Moran, one of my co-workers, is get a baking dish, and a deep baking dish like a 9x13 cake pan or something. Put that on the flat surface, put your pill box in there with your bottle, so when you drop it, you'll hear it, and it'll also be within the baking pan so that you can pick it up and don't lose it on the floor and somebody eats it or your dog eats it. So that is a very quick overview. I'm trying to look at all my devices and see if I missed anything. I'm sure I did, but if there's more questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, so much. That's so much great information. So I think, we'll put it all in the resource page, and so everybody will have access to that. So many great ideas. Tom?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You want to fill us in on all the tech side of stuff and what's going on, what we can look forward to?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, my background is I'm a development professional, which is a fancy way of saying I'm a fundraiser, which is what I do professionally. And I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've been a type 1 since age 9, and that's how I lost my vision when I was a junior in college when I was 21. So I've been living with this issue for a long, long time. And what did Judy say? I said I'm totally blind. Maybe I should start using Judy's line. I'm completely blind, so people really understand what I'm saying. Anyway, that's interesting phrase, Judy. So But thanks, Kim. That was a whirlwind presentation. I feel like I need to take a shower now. It's like, good God, that was amazing. But really well done. She covered a lot of the things in here. So I wanted to touch on a couple things that I thought you all might want to be interested. We can take questions on some of the actual equipment here, but as Kim was mentioning, she talked and did a show and tell on some of the products that are out there today that are accessible, and I should say are fully accessible, because that's an important distinction, that they are fully accessible, like the Prodigy Voice, where you or I, as a totally blind diabetic, can totally set that thing up, take my blood sugars. In fact, that's the meter that I use right now, and I find it to be the best. Although I also am using the Libre continuous glucose monitor, but I use my Prodigy Voice as a backup if I don't think the CGM is accurate. So, but the sad reality, guys, is that most of the commercially available tools on the market to manage diabetes are not fully accessible. I mean, Kim, you rattled off quite a few, but there are so many more choices out there, guys, that really are not available to people and diabetics who are blind or visually impaired. And in my opinion, that's something that really has to change. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm involved in about trying to change this. So, and I can certainly take questions about other technologies later on, Charlotte, but I want to touch on this because I think it's really important that this group hear about some of the things that are going on in this particular arena. Because I really do believe that given things the way things are today, things need to change. In my opinion, blind and visually impaired diabetics deserve to have the same choices as anybody else when it comes to how they manage their disease, the technologies they use, et cetera, et cetera. And I would hope most of you would agree with that assessment. So several years ago, I began working as a volunteer with the American Council of the Blind. And this is not a political statement, guys, because diabetes management as a blind and visually impaired person is not political, but I affiliate with ACB, and we have what I affectionately call a diabetes task force that is working to address this issue of inaccessible durable medical equipment, other things that blind or visually impaired diabetics could use to better manage their diabetes if indeed they were fully accessible. And so that's the real goal of this task force. So the approach we're taking is a three-pronged approach to trying to address this issue. So I'm going to walk you through these three-pronged approaches so you can kind of get a feel for where we're coming from. And as an individual, I certainly welcome anybody who's interested in this arena to contact me and to get involved. So the first prong of this initiative is legislative. So we're working with Congress, you know, to create legislation that makes it compels pharma to introduce universal design into all their next generation of biotech. So universal design means that the device will work for everybody. It's not a really difficult concept. Anyone who has an iDevice or even an Android phone knows that those are universally designed, and there are ways to turn voiceover on or talkback on and talkback off or voiceover off. That's universal design, guys. That's what it means. So it works for everybody. So we're trying to compel pharma to really take these steps, and believe you me, you know, they're very reluctant. They look at the financial part of it. They look at the liability side of it, which is a huge part of the conversation. And they look at a lot of things that they have a powerful lobby in DC, so they have a lot of influence. So, but our position in ACB is if the next generation of biotech isn't accessible, then we would like Congress to make provisions in Medicare that would say that unless a device is fully accessible, Medicare won't pay for it. That sounds like a really aggressive tactic, but so far these farmers have been very reluctant to do anything voluntarily. So it seems to me we're going to have to really kind of get them, you know, to compel them to comply. And I think if you make a provision in Medicare that says if something's not fully accessible, then they won't pay for it, that'll get farmers' attention pretty darn quick, I would think. So that's the first prong. The second prong is advocacy. We all know about advocacy. And I will say, honestly, even though pharma's been about as pain in the butt as they can be about being disagreeable about making their products accessible, we as the consumers, the blind and visually impaired diabetics, I feel very strongly we have an obligation to continue to try and educate them about the abilities of people who are blind and visually impaired, because believe it or not, even in 2020, there are still a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes out there. So we as a population, we as a community need to, get them to understand that we're, just as capable and competent as other people, providing the device that we're trying to use is fully accessible. So I like to say that the barrier today versus way back when I first got involved in this back in the 90s, the barrier today is not technology anymore, guys. The barrier today is all the attitudes. The attitudes that people in pharma have that think, oh my, blind and visually impaired people and blind and visually impaired diabetics specifically, they're not competent enough to use this technology. And so those attitudes really are something that need to change. And I put that on all of us because it's just important to do it. So we need to collaborate on this, as I just said. We need to get everybody that shares this vision to come together, because we all know that the greater numbers we can put together, we can make a much stronger case for support, both from a social standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint. I've worked with a lot of these companies over the years, and they always ask me, Tom, if we build it, are your people going to come? I said, I have no idea, but I can tell you they're not going to come if you don't make it accessible. So that is a fact. And in fact, I would, just as a sidebar, I'd say that, Steve Jobs is a smart man, not just because he made an amazing device in iOS and an iPhone, but the fact that he made it out of the box accessible to everybody basically broadened his financial base. Because I think those of us that are on this call that are blind or visually impaired that use that technology, I referenced Judy, that they own iOS devices because they work right out of the box, and that's the way it should be. So the last leg of the last prong of our approach in ACB is of course the least wanted and the most not wanting to do it is litigation. But at some point, when we think we've given pharma enough time to get their act together and to comply and to realize that blind and visually impaired diabetics deserve fully accessible devices, and they continue to thumb their nose at us, and we're going to actually take them to court. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. We're going to take them to court and we're going to sue them. And we have an attorney on hand who's been helping us pro bono for the past several years. And he believes that there may be some provisions in Obamacare that have some legal language in there that may have some legal leverage to compel pharma to actually force them to make their biotech fully accessible. So we'll see if that truly pans out. But again, that's really the last resort, is to take somebody to court. Obviously, they have much deeper pockets than we do, but at some point, you gotta take a stand. So I'm kind of wrapping up here, Charlotte. So we need to stay together on this. We either need to be involved or we'll be relegated to insignificance. That's just it. It's all about advocacy and being involved, and we all know about that. If we don't get involved, then nobody else is going to do it for us. So as I kind of intimated at the beginning of this, I've been doing this since 1993. According to my doctor, I was the first totally blind diabetic to go on an insulin pump. And believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, back in 1993, there was nothing accessible about an insulin pump. I mean, there wasn't even audible bolusing at that point. So I literally had to count up the clicks, each click being 1/10 of a unit as I hit the up arrow key in the pump. And when I hit activate and the drive mechanism was driving the plunger and the pump to deliver the insulin, I had to literally count back the turning of that piston. And if it started to overshoot my delivery, so if I was giving myself 5 units, it's 50 clicks. So if it starts to go beyond 50, I would have to put the pump into suspend and stop the delivery of insulin. That is not a very functional way to manage your diabetes. So I did it because I wanted to be on a pump. So I'm hoping that, I can rally the troops here and get everyone involved and try and get you excited about getting involved in this mission. Because really, in my opinion, we need to put people who are blind and visually impaired and diabetic, in this case, in their rightful place. And I think we need to get society and pharma in particular to value and respect who we are, and to do what's not only just the right thing to do, but would be a very cost-effective thing to do. Because my view is, at the end of the day, somebody's going to do this. Someone in the pharma industry is going to say, you know what, this is really, and we actually had the people that run Prodigy, was run by a guy whose father was a type 1 diabetic, and that's how he started to develop these accessible products, is because he had a father who was a type 1 diabetic and losing vision. But they're so small. They actually have a prototype of an accessible, fully accessible insulin pump, but they couldn't, it's on the shelf right now, which is a shame, because they don't have the kind of money you need to have to get it through federal FDA approval. So it's a real shame. So anyway, Charlotte, those are my remarks for this afternoon. I thank you all, and I'm happy to take any questions when the time is right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
And I just want to put out there, and we'll include this information as well, there are 2 bills that Tom mentioned that are currently in Congress. HR 3929 and Senate Bill 815. So we'll put some more information out there in the resource page if anybody wants to write to their senator or representative to support those access technology bills. We'll put that information out there. All right, so our last guest, and I'm really amazed, I'm so proud of you guys, we're like right on time, is Sylvia Sugar Lopez, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about just, I mean, all of you guys have this amazing positive attitude, but you know, I struggle with it. I'm sighted, but I have, you know, a diabetic son, I have autistic daughter, you know, just life in general. There's a lot of burdens that we carry, and just having that positive attitude makes such a difference. And so she's going to just finish us off with some ideas on, you know, coping and maintaining that. Sugar?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for Charlotte for Envision America for this opportunity. I'm happy to be here.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
I have a few friendly secrets for coping with challenges and change after loss from sight, because I am completely / totally blind as well for the past 23 years, and also due to diabetes. But I wanted to thank my very good friend, Artis Bazin, for this wonderful article that inspired me to help us all out today. I have 5 points I want to share with you all. 5 points to move forward in a positive way. So we all know that during this time and after these 5 points, I hope if somebody finds something in here that can help you out. I know they have helped me personally. And so we know that right now, as we're going through the coronavirus time, and the situation is a very stressful and challenging time, with all the news and warning, and more people have to deal with new challenges and changes in their lives. Being blind is even more challenging, but I hope these tips help us out. Number 1, benefit from the support of friends and family. Talk to friends and family about the challenges, and they can either help you by assisting you with giving you great ideas, or just give you some mental support. I found that friends and family, as well as my faith in God, to be helpful for me personally. Number 2, keeping your sense of humor. Use your sense of humor to keep your focus positive. Read some humorous stories, find a joke, web pages. Just try to be yourself, don't change. And finding humor in life, you know, is a way to always get out of those times that you may feel depressed, or when you feel like walls are coming down around you. Sometimes you are the only one that can get yourself out of that position. So, you know, all you can do is try. Another way is to try to cheer up others. Learn strategies to learn to deal with necessary changes in your life. Sometimes the easy way is to cope, excuse me, is to developing new skills. Learn alternatives that you've never tried before, like podcasts, online blogging, webinars, and et cetera, et cetera. talk to friends, colleagues or coworkers to see what they're doing, to complete working in a new way. Finding new ways to work through life's challenges, it not only takes up time, but it makes you think and kind of makes you forget your focus on yourself. Number 3, support. Finding a support system is a vital way to learn to cope with the loss of our sight. Surround yourself with familiar things, people you can relate to and learn from others. You may be able to encourage someone as well, or someone may need to hear what you want to offer in return. I have a wonderful support system through my family and organizations that I have joined in the 23 years that I've been blind. So looking for an organization, community service, maybe volunteering either by phone or a blind center that will help you keep you motivated. And that way you feel you're not alone and others will be able to relate to what they're going through by your example. And I know that sometimes it's hard, but at times you have to take that first step. Number 4, having a different perspective. View challenges or different, view challenges or obstacles as an opportunity for you to make a difference. And sometimes our lives get interrupted when we face challenges. We need to look outside the box. Number 5, try new things. At times we get too comfortable in our comfort zone and we don't allow ourselves to explore and to learn and experience new things. And when we explore new ideas, we find out that we get to learn new things and we get to experience things that we never knew were out there or that we even enjoyed. We can search online for stress relievers or a new exercise program. Develop visual techniques. When I'm having a stressful time, I like to visualize a better time that gives me new hope and new goals in my life. And once you figure out all of that, it can give you a fresh idea and give you fresh goals in your personal life and what you want to accomplish. Remember that times can change and so can you. And as we move along this life, we need to learn to move in a positive way, thinking that there's always something better at the end of that tunnel. Whether we can see it or not, just being positive, there's always options and there's always a light. So go on and try it. You might find something you never knew you enjoyed. It will take some time to adjust with some patience, self-awareness, perseverance, determination, and some faith in yourself. You can accomplish your goals. And you can even be more confident in all you do. I believe you can do it. I believe in you, and I believe you can make it, and you can fulfill your dreams. Be safe and enjoy your life, and know that only you are the only one that can make things happen. And so this is what I have to end with. To stay positive, remember who you are, and stay true, and remember that you are a special person. And that as long as you keep yourself happy, then you may make others happy. Warmly, Edgar Lopez, your life counselor. Carla?
Thank you so much for those encouraging words. So, well, that I think concludes like everyone's presentations, and we're gonna maybe address some of the questions. Richie, do you have that list?
Yeah, I do. I think what we can do is just I can ask the question to the panelists, and then they can go from there. Got a couple good ones here. A lot of them I answered as we went along. And then there are some others that will be sent directly to the panelists to reach out to the person after, just as they're a little longer. They could be a little longer. So let's see here. This first one is for Judy. Judy, in your experience with seeing AI in Vision and SuperSense, do you find one is better or easier to use than another for text, barcodes, color ID, and etc.?
I hope my audio is working now. Is it?
Yep. Yeah.
I hear you.
Okay, perfect. I think that really depends on what you're scanning. I do use all three, and I find I tend to use one. If it doesn't work, I'll run another one. Barcoding is clearly the hardest thing to do with any of them, and I can tell you at the moment, Seeing AI by far works best for scanning barcodes. But I would think that might change.
Great, thank you. While you're still, we still have good audio for you, Judy. I got another one. This one's for Judy. Are the books about iPhone use for the blind available in regular printed form or only in Braille?
They are available in in electronic digital form. They're all available in Word. So, you know, with a printer, that could be printed form.
Got it. All right, let's see here. Kim, you have several here. The first one is there any way to get a Prodigy for low cost or free due to insurance not covering?
So sorry, my dog Carson has joined me. He was crying in the other room, so he's going to answer these questions. So on the resource that I'm going to give on how to give a glucometer, there is a mail order company that provides a service called the Blind Diabetes Group, and I have the phone number on there, and they will assist you in getting one if you do not have insurance. And you can also get one through your insurance through them. They'll help you work through it. So that resource will be on there. But like I said, please don't take no for an answer from your insurance company. Medicare covers glucometers at 80%, and most insurance companies follow Medicare rules. So if you have health insurance and they say no, don't take no for an answer. You get your doctor involved, get them to fill out a medical necessity form, get him to write specifically the Prodigy meter. All this is on that information I'm going to give you. It takes some effort, but you will be able to get it.
Can I just add, Kim, in my own personal experience, I fought with my insurance company for over 3 months trying to get a Prodigy Voice when I was first told I was diabetic. And finally, one of the pharmacy people at my prescription, program said, you should probably check with your insurance company about getting this through durable medical equipment. And bingo, that was the answer.
Yes, that is how it's classified for insurance purposes. The other thing I want to say is if you do not have health insurance, Walmart has Rely On brand, and they have the Rely On Premier Voice. This is also on that form I'll give you. It only costs $15. The strips only cost $9 for $50. So when I've had people that have not been able to get a Prodigy meter for them or another talking meter, they have gotten the Rely On Voice. So that's all on that info I'll give you.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's see here. We have another one for Kim. Okay. How will clients who have low or no vision know if they have bubbles in their insulin?
Good question. You don't. That's one of the risks with it. So kind of what you have to do is if you have to use insulin from a vial, you need to know how much insulin. It's usually 100 units. Some of them have 300 units in it. Know how many units are in your vial, and you're going to have to kind of keep track. You know that if you take 10 units and there's 100 units in it, you're going to get 10 days out of it. I suggest that you go 9 days to make sure you don't get bubbles and you don't get air in your syringe. So you're kind of wasting a little bit of insulin, but they always put a little bit extra in there anyway, so you should be okay.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, can I add to that, Richie, real quick?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom, go ahead.
So just a technique that I've used, Kim, that's been very effective when I was using the counter dose is that when I was taking a mixed dose of insulin, I would basically draw in the first dose of insulin through the counter dose, tap the syringe, and then it's a thumb wheel is what it is. It rolls back and shove the insulin back into the vial. And I do that 2 or 3 times. And by that time, you could actually hear when the insulin kind of makes a smooth kind of like sort of noise, you know, there's no air in the syringe anymore. So that's a technique I've used. It's worked pretty well. But the point you made about the volume of the insulin vial is important too. But so that's one technique I've used. It seems to have worked very well when I was using regular disposable syringes.
Thank you, Tom. I'm stealing that from my toolbox.
Sure.
All right, so here's one that pertains to the times right now from Mary, and anybody can answer. This is for anybody. How do clients who have recently lost their vision adjust during these uncertain times? Does anybody want to take that?
I think Sylvia covered it best, and that's go ahead and reach out. Find the resources in your area and reach out and ask them what's happening now. What can I do to get help now? By phone, by Zoom, by mailing things that your family might read to you, the types of things that can be still done remotely, and then you'll already be on the list for when we can start, being in society again.
Most agencies are still doing intake and working with people remotely, as Neva says.
Excellent, thank you. It looks like that may do it, Charla. For now, there are some.
Can I add one thing, Richie, to that last point? Excuse me.
Go right ahead, Tom.
Well, I just thought it's a resource because I used to work there for 9 years, is to have the Institute for the Blind and Visually Impaired. They obviously have been doing things at a distance since the inception. So that might be a great place to plug into. It's free. And they're totally set up to work with people at a distance. That's the whole point of the model, is to serve people at a distance. So that's a suggestion where somebody might look and try and find out as a newly blind person, where they could get some help.
Yeah,
that's a great suggestion. Hadley.edu.
And it's on that resource list as well that we sent out.
I got to say, this resource list sounds amazing, and I think it's going to be beneficial to everybody on this call.
I agree.
full of information. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so you guys do give us a day or two to finish putting all that together before we email it out to you. And we just want to say thanks for everyone for joining us today. This is being recorded. We will have the recording available so you can come back and review stuff. Other people can still register and view the recording as well. All right, does anybody have any last bits they want to share? All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, and everyone have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Charlotte. Great job, everybody.
Charlotte.